Hi, welcome back to Bride Society. I'm Rebecca and this is Laura. So this week we're talking perks of smaller weddings. So we know in the current climate circumstances with COVID that obviously wedding reception sizes have been vastly reduced from what you may have been intending. And also you may further down the line when this is all over, touch wood, that you may just be trying to weigh up the choice between having a bigger wedding or a smaller wedding. So yeah, we thought we'd round up what we thought were the kind of perks, upsides of the smaller wedding.
Yeah, so the first, maybe potentially most important pro for you is it's potentially cheaper. So fewer guests means you won't be spending as much money potentially on kind of the wedding breakfast, which is often probably the priciest part of your day, the food. Feeding people. So yeah, if you've got fewer people to feed, then it's not going to add up to quite as much. You don't have to buy as many favours. You won't need as many tables potentially. So yeah, you can save a bit of cash by not having kind of hundreds of guests.
But on the flip side of that, obviously, a smaller wedding doesn't have to mean cheaper. Like if you still want to spend big and have a luxurious day, you can still totally do that on a smaller scale. And it might be that then the money that you're spending can go on things that maybe you and your fiance particularly care about. So it may not be that your budget changes even, it's just that now maybe, I don't know, that you're getting bigger floral displays, or that you're adding an extra course to your dinner. So yeah, no, you can still definitely splash out and make it luxurious and feel special.
And if you've got fewer guests at your wedding, you can maybe really personalise things that maybe you're giving to your guests to those guests. So maybe wedding favours, for example, you might want to tailor them specifically to the guests that you've got coming. So each one, you could potentially do something different for each person if you wanted to spend that bit of extra time and you've got a bit more budget to do that, because you're not talking about doing kind of hundreds of these things. So each one is special, individual to the person. And if you do want to do a big DIY for your wedding, it's not quite as overwhelming if you're only doing maybe 20, 30 things. It'll still take you longer than you think. We say this every time.
DIY is longer than you think. But you're right, the amount of time you have to multiply, doing one DIY, by 100 versus by 20, it's very different time span.
Exactly. So it might be the way to add those little DIY touches without it being too stressful.
As well, with there being less people there, the other thing is that it makes it more intimate. So for my wedding, it was a bigger affair, and a lot of the other weddings I've been to are bigger. And I don't know, maybe I think when we all think wedding, we think big, grand affair, and it also doesn't have to be that way, and it's what we're saying, you do you, it's your wedding. But yeah, they're having fewer people there, it does bring that intimacy. And what I was going to say about having the bigger wedding is that the biggest downside to me for that was the lack of time that you get to spend with individual people that are there, that have made that big effort to potentially travel a long way to your big day, get dressed up, just make the time for you, to celebrate with you. They're there because they love you and they want to celebrate with you, but yet you struggle for time, one-on-one, to have a good conversation. You spend your whole time running around, it's wonderful, but you spend your whole time running around and wishing you could give more of yourself to individuals, I think. Would you agree?
I definitely agree. I had about 50 people at our wedding, and I was going to say my wedding then, but then I thought I probably shouldn't, because it wasn't just me. It was.
Well, yeah, but if you say our, it makes it sound like yours and mine.
Yeah, then I thought they might think, yeah. At my wedding to my husband, we had about 50 guests, and even then, I probably was able to get around and say hello to everyone, but I didn't have the time to speak to everybody. And as you say, kind of spend that time, have that conversation, because they made all that effort to come and see me. I think wedding days as a whole are passing such a whirlwind, regardless of how many guests. But yeah, fewer guests, you probably can spend some time with them, can't you?
Yeah, and I think especially, you know, if you're watching this video again during sort of the COVID times, is that you've potentially also not seen these people for months, and so you might actually want the quality time.
Yeah.
Now that you finally can see this like sort of select group of people, like it might make that sort of extra special to have that time.
Definitely. And along those lines, it kind of gives you the opportunity to only invite the people you really want there. So it gives you an excuse to avoid those obligation invites that maybe kind of your second cousin twice removed, that there's some family members saying, oh no, you've got to invite them, they invited you to their wedding, whereas really you haven't seen them in 20 years and you don't want them taking up a space or paying for them at your wedding. So you've got this opportunity to have your select group of people who you really want there to spend that time with. And
and I think if you're saying to people, oh, I'm just having a smaller wedding, or current circumstances is an obligatory smaller wedding if you're having it, then I think people will maybe not offended in the same way about not being invited if you went to theirs and stuff. Like they'll just kind of go, oh, it'll just be family and a few friends kind of thing. Like there's then an understanding about what's happening as well. And then as well, again, just because of the volume of people, like things like giving speeches, if you're doing that, like people doing it might feel more comfortable, more confident, because there's not the sort of sea of people staring at them. They might therefore maybe know more of the people that are there, and so it's more maybe like talking with friends rather than, again, people that maybe your father or whoever it is has never met. And so people might just feel more relaxed, confident, give better speeches ultimately, because the delivery will be potentially more relaxed.
And also that can help as well if you're not one for being the centre of attention on a day-to-day basis. It can be quite overwhelming at kind of your wedding, that everyone staring at you, all eyes are on you, it's your special day. So if you've only got those select people that you trust and you love and want to be there, you may potentially then feel a lot more relaxed and enjoy the day more.
Or indeed, you could just keep part of your day more intimate. Was it COVID complications aside, but if you potentially wanted a more intimate, if intimacy is the thing you're going for, if you wanted that for like your ceremony and the maybe dining part, you know, if you're wanting to keep the cost down and have that intimacy, then you could have a bigger party later on with more guests post-COVID situation, and which also works well if you're getting married abroad. You know, potentially it's just a much more select group that will go with you abroad, but that doesn't mean you can't celebrate with your wider circle of friends. And if you're just maybe doing the sort of party part, again post-COVID, then you're not dealing with the sort of per head dining costs in the same way. So you're not then sort of incurring two lots of cost, if you see what I'm saying.
So you can have the best of both worlds.
Yes,
essentially.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that is what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
So another advantage to maybe having a smaller wedding is in the type of venue it may open up to you. So with smaller numbers, you might be able to have some kind of alternative reception venues which aren't typically wedding venues, or ones that are maybe really personal and unique to you. So if you've got a favourite pub, you might be able to use kind of part of the pub for a meal and drinks and maybe a bit of dancing post-COVID restrictions. That just should be the disclaimer for all of this.
To this video. Lastly, our point to sort of leave you on was that we think, you know, your guests that are there will then likely feel like they've been a much more like important part of your day, like that they've shared in that experience with you and made those sort of special lasting memories. And I feel that's really true for like the smaller weddings that I've been to, like abroad and things, that there was such a small group of us that I feel like when that couple think about that day, I will be part of, like specifically will be part of that memory and having like contributed to making that day special.
I would agree with that. The kind of wedding I've been to with maybe like 12 guests, that's such a, you feel as though you've been chosen as part of the kind of the chosen few to be there and be part of their like really happy day and significant day in their life. So I would definitely agree with that. So yeah, we hope we've given you some good ideas and positives for having a smaller wedding. We'd love to hear if you're planning a small wedding. If you've got any of the positives, leave them in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.